All right, let's dive into a really fascinating case study. So imagine this. You've got a game-changing new product, but you want to launch it in one of the toughest, most complex markets on the planet, Europe. How do you actually go from a great idea to a massive success? Well, today we're going to break down exactly how one company cracked that code, all by using the power of market intelligence. So, here's how we'll walk through it. First, we'll set the scene with the high-stakes launch they were facing. Then, we'll get into the weeds of the complex market they had to navigate. After that, we'll look at the how, the strategic investigation they launched. We'll see the incredible, actionable insights they found. And finally, we'll see how all that intelligence forged a clear path to success. Okay, so let's really put ourselves in their shoes for a second. You've poured years, money, everything into developing a breakthrough product. The potential is just huge. But that next step, wow, it's a massive challenge. How do you take that product and launch it successfully in a market that is notoriously tricky to figure out? This was the exact million-dollar question our company was facing. So who is the hero of our story today? Well, we're talking about a mid-size U.S. pharmaceutical company. They were already doing well at home. They were established. But they had their sights set on a much, much bigger prize, a full-scale European expansion. Yeah, this was no startup. They had solid capabilities, they had experience, and their goal was incredibly ambitious. They weren't just launching one new product. They wanted to launch an entire portfolio of new products called biosimilars, and they wanted to do it across all of Europe. Talk about a massive undertaking. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly is a biosimilar? The simplest way to think about it is like a highly similar, officially approved version of a biological medicine that already exists. So what that means is you're not just launching something totally new into an empty space. Oh no, you are entering a market where powerful competitors are already dug in. The competition is fierce from day one. And that huge ambition, it immediately ran headfirst into a giant wall. The unbelievable complexity of the European market, where success was anything but guaranteed. This is probably the most important point to get. Launching in Europe is nothing like launching in, say, the United States. It is not one market. It's a maze. It's a patchwork quilt of dozens of countries, and every single one has its own rules, its own healthcare system, its own local competitors, and its own logistical headaches. You just can't have one strategy and expect it to work everywhere. No way. So, because of that complexity, the company was staring down a list of critical, unanswered questions. I mean, who are they actually competing against in Germany versus, say, Spain? How could they physically get their product to pharmacies and hospitals all across the continent? How would they get paid in each country where the pricing and reimbursement rules are totally different? And what kind of marketing actually connects with a doctor in France compared to one in Italy? These were not small details, folks. Any one of these could have been a total launch killer. And this quote really hits the nail on the head. They just couldn't afford to guess. They couldn't wing it. They needed a solid, evidence-based playbook, a data-driven map that would guide their decisions, slash the immense risk they were taking on, and, maybe most importantly, tell them where to focus their time and money for the best shot at success. So, to build that playbook, they kicked off what you could call a strategic investigation. This wasn't about finding one easy answer. It was about a deep, multi-layered approach to gathering intelligence and really solving the puzzle of the European market. And their approach was really methodical. It was a structured 5-step process. First, they started with secondary research. What's already published out there. Then, they moved on to primary research, which meant actually talking to experts on the ground. From there, they did a deep dive into the competition, mapped out all the crazy regulatory and payment systems, and finally, the crucial part. They pulled all of that raw information together to build a coherent strategy. Now, the real power here, the secret sauce, is in combining these two types of research. Think of it this way. Secondary research gives you the foundation. It's the publicly available facts and figures. But the primary research, that's where you find the gold. That's when you talk to people in the market who can tell you the nuances, the why behind the data, and the real-world stuff that never, ever makes it into a press release. Okay, so the investigation was done. But, collecting a mountain of data is one thing. Turning it into a clear, actionable strategy, that's the real magic trick. So let's take a look at what they actually uncovered. This is where it all comes together beautifully. Remember all those critical, kind of scary questions we saw earlier? Well, now each one had a direct, concrete answer. The question, where do we even start, was answered with a prioritized list of countries. Who are we up against? Got a detailed competitive map in response. Concerns about the supply chain were met with a full-scale evaluation. And that super complex question of getting paid was answered with a clear map of the pricing pathways. This is what turning data into real decisions looks like. I love this because it really shows you how the value gets created. You start with a ton of raw data. It's basically just noise. Then comes the analysis, where you start connecting the dots and seeing the patterns. But the ultimate goal, the top of the pyramid, is the strategy. A clear, actionable roadmap that tells you exactly what to do, where to go, and how to win. It's the process of turning all that static into a crystal clear signal. So with this incredible roadmap in hand, what was the actual impact? I mean, how did all this intelligence really forge a path to success for the company in the real world? Well, the impact really rested on these 5 key pillars. Instead of guessing, they could mitigate risks because they knew what was coming. They could position their product perfectly because they actually understood the competitive landscape. They knew where to put their money to get the highest return. They could get to market faster because they had a clear regulatory path. And ultimately, all of this strengthened their chances of long-term commercial success. And look, if there is one crucial point to take away from this entire explainer, it is right here. This whole process is fundamentally about transformation. It takes the massive uncertainty and the terrifying risk of going into a complex market, and it converts it into the confidence that you only get when you have a clear, data-backed plan for growth. Ultimately, what this case study really shows us is that good intelligence doesn't just help you avoid failure, it actively helps you find success by turning what looks like a risk into a clear and calculated opportunity. And that leaves us with a great question to think about. Where is your next big opportunity just hiding, waiting for the right intelligence to unlock it?